Welcome to Calm Story Time. Tonight, we'll journey to a place above the clouds. Not far, not famous, but known to those who've ever needed to say something without needing to be heard. The post office in the majestic mountains isn't on any map, but it finds you when the words in your chest outgrow silence. There are drawers for unsent letters, stamps that wait years to be touched, and envelopes that cross time, not distance. You don't need to understand this place. You only need to let it hold what you've been carrying. So, settle in. The mountains are listening. The envelope with the wrong year. The envelope arrived postmarked 1972, though the sender was a young woman who had written it just last week. She placed it gently on the counter and asked, "Will it still be delivered?" The clerk didn't question the date. He simply nodded and took it. That afternoon, snow fell low on the ridge. The envelope sat quietly in the outbound tray. But no courier picked it up, and no bird circled the sky. It wasn't ignored, just waiting. 3 days later, an older man arrived. His hand shook when he asked, "Did something come for me late?" The clerk handed over the envelope. The man stared at the date and laughed softly. Right on time. He left without opening it. Some letters don't need to be read, only received, because sometimes the year doesn't matter. Only the moment you're ready.
It came too soon or much too late, but found its way, aligned with fate. Time doesn't always need to know when something's meant to find its home.
The final delivery. The clerk had worked in the mountain post office for so long that no one remembered when he arrived. He didn't speak often, but he always knew what drawer to open, which shelf to reach for, and when to say nothing at all. Letters moved through his hands like wind through pine, quiet, necessary, unseen. But he had never received one, until one snowy morning he found a package on the counter. No one had come through the door. The label read only, "For the one who stayed." He opened it carefully, as if it might disappear. Inside was a letter, written in his own handwriting. Years ago, forgotten. He read it slowly. It spoke of weariness, of choosing stillness over escape, of wondering whether holding space for others had left him empty. And at the end, you didn't need to leave to be brave. You just had to stay. He folded the letter and placed it in a drawer he had never opened before. That night, the wind didn't howl, it hummed. And the post office, for the first time in memory, felt completely full.
He held the room, the mail, the years, and never asked for thanks or tears. But when his name appeared at last, the mountainside
The letter to the future self. The post office offered a special drawer, one without a lock, labeled simply, "Someday." People placed letters inside with no stamp, no date, only hope. Some addressed them to versions of themselves they hadn't become yet. Others wrote from who they used to be. When Mira arrived, she didn't know what to write, but the clerk gave her a blank envelope anyway. She sat by the stove, stared into the flame, and let her hand move. The letter was short. "Please don't forget what made you softer." Then she sealed it and let it go. Years passed. Snow came and melted, again and again. One morning Mira returned. Older now, her hands less restless. The clerk, still the same, handed her a letter. She didn't open it right away, just held it and exhaled, like someone remembering their own name. Some mail doesn't cross distance, it crosses time. And sometimes the most important delivery is the one you wrote yourself, when you needed it most.
You wrote with hands not yet your own, to plant a seed you hadn't grown, and when it bloomed, the sky turned still, your heart returned with quiet
The letter with no recipient. The post office sat near the edge of the mountain, where the air was thinner and the clouds moved like thoughts across the pine-limbed cliffs. It wasn't on any map, and yet people found it. Or rather, they were found by the need to write something they couldn't carry anymore. The bell over the door didn't ring. It exhaled. Today it was Ada. She stepped inside, wrapped in silence and wool. Her boots dripped from melted snow. She carried no bag. Just a single envelope, worn at the edges, sealed but unmarked. The clerk, an older man with quiet eyes and ink-stained fingertips, didn't ask where it was going. He didn't ask who it was for. He simply nodded, reached for a small wooden tray, and placed the letter inside. Ada hesitated. "Will it be delivered?" He looked at her gently, only to where it's meant. She sat on the bench by the window for a while, watched the clouds roll over the ridgeline, listened to the scratching of pen on paper behind the counter. Then she left. Later that evening, the clerk lit the lamp beside the tray, opened the envelope. Inside, no address, no signature, just one sentence, written in unshaking script. "I forgive you, even if you never ask me to." He folded it again, placed it in a drawer with dozens of others like it. Letters with no name, no path, but always a destination.
Some words don't need an end or name. They travel slow like wind through flame. A single line, a quiet pen. Forgiveness doesn't need
the one that was never sent. Among the drawers behind the counter was one marked unsent. The clerk never opened it, unless the wind blew from the east and the room grew quieter than usual. The letters inside weren't addressed. They were abandoned drafts, some unfinished, others carefully sealed but never mailed. One evening, a young man wandered in just before closing. He didn't speak, just stood by the drawer. The clerk opened it, sensing why he'd come. The man picked one envelope without looking at the name. "This one's not mine," he said, "but I think I needed it." He sat by the window reading it in silence. The letter wasn't profound, just a note about a missed walk, an apology never delivered, but the words felt like balm. He folded it back, not as property but as a gift received, something written for someone else and yet, somehow, for him. That drawer remained open for the rest of the evening. Not all letters need stamps. Some were never meant to travel far, only deep.
Some letters rest in silence deep and reach the ones who couldn't sleep. It wasn't yours and yet it fit. Because some truths aren't tightly read.
The package returned to sender. The box wasn't large, but it carried weight. Its corners were scuffed, the paper faded, the string tied tightly, too tightly, as if afraid it might open on its own. It arrived every winter, always addressed in the same shaky handwriting. But no matter where the clerk tried to send it, it came back. He stopped asking why. The system didn't recognize the town. The street didn't exist. Yet someone, somewhere, kept trying. Inside, he suspected, was something someone couldn't keep and someone else refused to receive. A memory packaged too early or too late. One year, a girl named Leah came into the post office. She didn't ask for stamps or directions. She just stared at the return shelf. Then, quietly, she pointed to the box. "That's mine." Or maybe it was meant to be. The clerk nodded and handed it over. She opened it slowly, as if afraid the air inside might speak. It held a single item, a photo turned face down, and a folded note. She didn't read it aloud, just smiled, not the happy kind, but the kind that knows something has finally stopped knocking. The next day, the shelf was empty for the first time in years. The clerk lit the stove, made tea, and didn't label the space. Some returns don't need new destinations, they just need to be opened.
Returned again, then once again, a box that wouldn't leave the safe right here.
The Rainproof Message. The rain had lasted 4 days without pause. It drummed on the roof of the mountain post office like a memory trying to be remembered. A man arrived soaked, his coat heavy and shoulders bent. In his hand, a thin envelope, sealed but damp only around the edges. He placed it gently on the counter. "This letter. It can't be lost," he said. The clerk looked at the page and saw ink untouched, dry as if written inside the storm. "Then it was written in truth," he replied. "Some words won't let water take them." The man didn't wait for confirmation. He stepped outside, head bowed, and disappeared into the mist. The clerk placed the envelope in a box marked "weatherproof." It joined others, fragile in form, unshakable in message. Later that night, lightning struck far on the ridge, but inside the post office the ink never ran, because some messages aren't afraid of storms. They are born in them.
The paper stayed dry through the fiercest rain because it held a softened pain, a truth too strong for storms to drown. So rain just bowed and settled down.
The stamp that was never used. The stamp had been tucked in the corner of a drawer for decades. It was violet, faded, with a curled edge and a silver mountain pressed into its surface. The ink had never touched it, yet it seemed older than anything else in the post office. Some said it was waiting for a message only it could carry. One morning, a traveler arrived with an envelope, but no words inside. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. The clerk nodded and pointed to the old drawer. She chose the violet stamp without knowing why. When she pressed it to the envelope, a warmth spread through her hand. The letter remained blank, but something shifted in her chest, as if what needed saying had been heard. The clerk placed the letter on a shelf labeled, "For what cannot be spoken." Then he quietly lit a candle beside it. Later that night, as wind curled around the roof, the clerk found the drawer empty. The stamp was gone, finally used, and in its absence the room felt lighter, not because something was lost, but because something had finally arrived.
A stamp that waited years to speak was touched by hands once shy and weak. No
The voice recorded in ink. Some letters don't read, they speak. Not aloud, but deep, like something remembered before it was ever heard. The postmaster discovered the first one years ago, written in green ink on thick paper. When he opened it, he didn't see words, he felt them. It was a mother's voice, soft and careful, saying what she hadn't had time to. The letter had no return address, only the name for later. Others followed, one from a man apologizing to a son he never met, another from someone who vanished but left their goodbye behind. Each voice was different, but the effect was the same. When opened, the letters didn't share stories. They gave back something lost. A tone, a warmth, a goodbye that felt full. People never asked how it worked. Most just closed their eyes and listened. The clerk kept the letters in a locked drawer, not to hide them, but to protect their weight. Not everyone was ready to hear, but those who were never left unchanged. Because some voices don't need breath, they only need to be heard.
The letter sang without a sound. It carried love, not tightly bound. A voice remembered deep inside, like morning light that never hide, like morning light that never hide. The letter sang without a sound. It carried love, not tightly bound. A voice remembered deep inside, like morning light that never hides, like morning light that never hides.
Thank you for visiting the post office in the mountains tonight. You didn't come with luggage, you came with weight. And sometimes that's all a letter is. A little piece of what you no longer wish to carry alone. Here, every drawer has its own memory. Every unopened envelope holds a whisper of what we couldn't say then, but needed to send now. If you leave lighter, it's not because you've lost something. It's because you let it rest. And this place, this quiet post office between the clouds, will always be here. For when you're ready to write again, or simply to be heard.
He held the room, the the mountainside, the weight had passed. You wrote with hands not yet your own, to plant a seed you hadn't grown, and when it bloomed the sky turned still, your heart returned with quiet will. Some words don't need an end or name. They travel slow like wind through flame. A single line, a quiet bend. Forgiveness doesn't need to send. A stamp that waited years to speak was touched by hands once shy and weak. No message marked, no loud reply, but something lifted in the sky.